Hello out there. This is the very first interview for the Mind underscore Games uh, Facebook page. I am Benito Gonzalez Jr. I am a player in the regular weekly game. I am speaking with somebody I'm super excited to be speaking with, and somebody I'm super proud of to say that I know, Johnathan Connor Self. Hi Connor.
Hey, Beans. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here and talking to you. I'm pretty excited to see what sorts of conversation we can generate because oh man, in the years past we've had some long fun doozies of conversations. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yes. You created probably my highest level character. You actually
Did
created
I
the
create
character.
it or did you create it?
It was shortly before game. You know what? I this is kind of out of forum, but I just want to tell a quick little story. Is that all right?
It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, you're running a game inside one of my gaming stores, and I'm listening, and I'm like, this guy is a phenomenal DM. I already knew you were part of the official AL volunteer group and everything. And it got about two game sessions in, and I'm like behind the counter, and I'm like, I really want to play. So you came in the next week, and I said, hey, is there any way I can play in your game? And, you know, about 15 minutes before everybody got there, you're like, yeah, I can make you a character. I'm like, you can make me a character in 15 minutes. It's not going to be horrible. You're like, oh yeah, I've won uh, competitions for it. Accounts, is that true? Have you won competitions?
Yeah, I've won back in the day. Back in the day when Adventurers League had a wide range of volunteers, regional coordinators and local coordinators. They used to run a contest where we would have to uh, blind submit our own ideas for like pre-generated characters,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I did pretty well with that. I always brag. I was like, I got more pre-generated characters selected than any other local coordinator. This is great. The So I'm like, yeah, you're like a character. I'm like, I can make a character. I can make a character pretty quick that's going to fit into the story because we're running out of the abyss. For
Yeah,
those of you at home who know that story, we're running out of the abyss, and I'm like, I can make one that's going to fit into this game session today and go with it.
it was amazing. It was amazing. Speaking of amazing things and AL adventures, you have just released uh, co-writer of your first epic,
Mm-hmm.
which is takes place in Icewind Dale. It is called, I believe, let's see, Terror in Ten Town.
Terror in 10 towns, yes, but you really only see five.
You only see
The
you only
terrors in all
see
10.
five in the
It's
towns.
terrors in all 10, but you only see five.
Okay,
Five. You're
yes, gotcha. But before we get into the modern stuff, I wanna go OG here. I wanna go old school. I'm
okay.
an old
Okay.
school gamer myself. I was actually surprised because you are quite the youthful looking individual. I think you've been gaming for 30 years.
For 30 years this year. Yeah, I've been gaming since I was pretty young. No offense to those of you out there who are watching who are newer to gaming. I adore you because you keep the energy levels high at any table I'm at. But I've been at it for a long time, so long that I'm starting to get the gray in my beard. I'm becoming official gray beard at this point. It's happening. 30 years ago, and I can remember. My buddy Bill, back when I was in middle school, was into gaming. He had introduced me. My first role playing game was the old TSR Marvel superheroes.
Oh my goodness, with all the charts.
Yeah, with the color charts on the back, and
Yep.
oh yeah, and I still have a soft spot in my heart for it. That was a great game. But he's like, I've heard of the most popular game of all. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm
Not
like,
Gamma World.
not Gamma World. It was Dungeons. And he's like, do you want to learn how to play? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll learn how to play. And so we went to the area high school. Now, mind you, none of us were in high school at the time.
Okay.
But the area high school was hosting like a gaming event where you could come in and learn to play. They had a club at the time. And so we went and sat at a table and played a D&D. And in particular, it was Dark Sun. I can
Oh,
remember this.
so this was around second edition?
Yeah, I want to say I started learning to play I started learning to play RPGs in
Okay. Okay.
19, thereabouts. But I didn't learn to play D&D for a little bit after that. And so I want to say it was Dark Sun that I went there and played. And I played a fire cleric, and it was a lot of fun. And then after I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is fun. Let's pick this up as something to do. And then we played through high school with characters out of the rule cyclopedia, which is a great one of the best resources, which is why you can't find it anywhere because nobody wants to get rid of their copy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's great for just like classic Dungeons and Dragons. And I've been playing ever since, every edition since then. So, and it's been an important part of my life.
Can I ask you a question then?
Yeah.
Starting in Dark Sun, did that really affect the way you play? Because Dark Sun, for those who don't know, when Dark Sun came out, they were having you start at third level. There were psionics everywhere. It was a very big kind of shift of gaming, and the world itself was very different than anything they had put out at that time. Um, when you started in Dark Sun and then went to something else, did it um was it a major change for you, or did it come easily?
That's a good question. Yeah, for those of you, yeah, Dark Sun is a really it's a world that's reemerging post Cataclysm. There are evil forces that sort of run the show, and it's difficult to survive. And honestly, it for me was a really great on road because I didn't have behind me like a lot of folks when they enter fantasy RPGs, they might come with a back reference of Lord of the Rings or Aragon, or some of those other shows that weren't as plentiful back when I learned to play.
Hmm.
And I never read Lord of the Rings and still haven't to this day. But I had seen the Conan movies,
Ah,
and because I'd seen the Conan movies, Dark Sun was actually a really good on ramp for me because
definitely,
it's
yeah.
similar in tone. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of luscious land in the Conan movies. It's all kind of a Badlands feel.
No magic really,
No,
like very low magic.
no.
Magic isn't to be trusted, and that's also a very Dark Sun idea.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so it was pretty cool. It was good for me. It might not be good for everybody because Dark Sun has a tendency to chew characters up.
Spit them out.
Yeah, and spit them in front of you in chunks. So but it was good for me.
And everybody's
Um,
always playing a Thicreen, and you can't talk to them because they can't speak common. But um, yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to reference that because I did not know that about you. I didn't know you started in Dark Sun.
no,
Um,
it's absolutely okay. I just for funsies, Dark Sun has a really like as it plays a really really fun role in my heart, and so I am um, I'm gonna pull something up for you
oh,
uh, that might make folks laugh. I believe I can screen share this,
we're gonna find out.
and as I open it, yep, here we go. So this is my Hero Forge account, and I was crafting a Thrycreen.
Wow.
a Thri-kreen miniature, hoping beyond hope at some point I would be able to play it and get the good folks at Hero Forge to print it up. Hero Forge doesn't sponsor this stream, but if they did want to sponsor the stream, reach out, But
Yo, yo. We're
yeah,
here.
but yeah, their character creator allows for a lot of neat options, including a Thri-kreen that I had in my mind. Look, wielding their two-handed war weapon in
I,
both of the right hands. That's pretty cool.
I, uh, I will say it too. We are not sponsored by them, but for customized miniatures, Hero Forge, at least so far, in my experience, has been the best. Um,
They're a great service.
yeah. So check them out if you guys get a chance to, and tell them they should sponsor me. I could use a couple miniatures. Um, so it started in Dark Sun, second edition.
Right.
Actually started with superhero games.
Superhero games.
Superhero games. That's usually the funny thing is when we first got the packaging and started playing D&D, Gamma World and Marvel,
Hmm.
those were like the two games in the back of the book that would be advertised because they figured like D&D got you in. Now we're gonna try to snag you with these other two games.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Superhero games were a good in for me. I've been a Spider-Man kid since I was in diapers, and uh, so everything was Spider-Man when I was growing up, and it was an easy on ramp for RPGs because I already had the passion for Marvel back when I was a little kid.
Interesting, interesting. Um, Now let's fast forward a few years.
Okay.
Okay, we're talking years of gaming under the belt.
Hmm.
Um, uh, just out of curiosity, have you always lived in the same area? Have you traveled over the last 30 years and seen different kind of I don't know, do people game different in certain other parts of the country that you've noticed?
Okay. Yeah, my since um, reaching adulthood, I've lived in a lot of different places, and had the real pleasure of being able to do it while I was young and meet a lot of people along the way. And I've lived all over the United States. I've lived abroad. I lived in Canada for some
Wow,
years.
I did not know that.
And gaming is not the same everywhere you go, which is pretty interesting. The Growing up here where we live, which is like north central Illinois, we're pretty close to the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons, and so there's a certain type of gamer and style of gamer here that you don't really see in other places. They tend to be very old school. Some folks you talk to will brag about, oh, I played at a table with Gary Gygax once, and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Most of us haven't.
we
Um,
we have a convention where you can basically his son runs it
his son
within
runs it.
driving
Yeah,
distance. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. That is Gary Kahn. I'm an admin volunteer there and have been for many years. But most people haven't played with Gary Gygax. They're not used to that sort of really hardcore kind of splatterhouse style of DMing, and you might see more, depending on where you live, more cooperative styles of gaming, more gaming styles that are more focused on the role playing or social elements, um, and maybe even more pop culture infused, and depending on where you live, which always makes me smile to see it when people pull elements out of pop culture that really don't have anything to do with the Tolkien mythos and say we're going to make this part of D&D. It's always great to see, and it often comes from people that don't live around here.
Strahd. Strahd's a great example. You look at the old horror movies of
Hmm.
heck even before they when it was just black and white. type text movies, you've always had this classic vampire fiend, and they went ahead and put that element along with werewolves and such into Ravenloft, which
Mhm.
was really cool. And Wizards of the Coast is doing a pretty good job of that too with some of their crossover work with um, Magic the Gathering. So,
Mhm.
you know, it was bittersweet, I think, for all of us when TSR officially got rid of the rights because being an older gamer, that's what I knew. I knew
And there
TSR.
and there was a fear too, right? There was a fear that
They
when they
would,
got rid of the rights, it was gone. Like there wasn't going to be D&D anymore.
yeah, it was going to just become Magic.
Well, and there was that fear when they were acquired by Wizards of the Coast, right? When
Yeah,
TSR went,
exactly. When Wizards bought them initially, we were really skeptical because we're like, well, we know Wizards can make a great card game, you know,
Mhm.
but how are they going to take such an epic entity and grow on it and
Mhm.
expand on it? And then Hasbro comes in, and we really all got nervous. And they they're strong.
Yeah,
They've done a great job.
the brand is probably stronger now than it ever was, um, and uh, and there's been great stewardship of the brand from the folks at Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro, and they've put the brand in the hands of people who understand and appreciate the core elements of it, but also understand how to make it more accessible to everybody and more inclusive of everybody so that more people want to play it and can find a place to play it and a community where they fit in to play it. Now, I mean, holy cow, I've got a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons toys that didn't exist when we were kids. Um, because
I had a War Duke when the cartoon was out. I bought me a
oh,
War Duke.
yeah, the
Yeah,
cartoon was the closest it got to really hitting pop culture, right?
yeah.
They tried a movie that didn't work, but um, uh, the the folks at Hasbro now have licensed out the a new movie to Paramount, and they have Chris Pine in it.
Oh,
So
I don't know if you realize this, but they also did the animated movie for Dragonlance that was actually quite good. I
yeah,
thought.
yeah, they're doing some good things now because of the rebirth of the brand. You can find toys in the popular toy aisle again. They've got custom toys. I've got my Drist Barbie coming. I call it Drist Barbie, but it's a fully posable action figure of Drist and Glenn Wyvar. I'm pretty excited. You can find Funko Pops for Dungeons and Dragons.
I
Posters of it.
I do want to point out, just because we're talking about Icewind Dale today, I am wearing Driss Jordan
Yeah,
to our
there
fans
you
out
go.
there. So,
The Yeah, there's a ton of stuff, and there's more coming on the horizon that I'm really excited about, and a bunch of ideas in my head about what it might be. So I'm not going to speculate on here because nobody wants to hear speculation. But you can
oh, everybody
speculate.
wants to hear speculation. They just want to know more after they
You're right,
hear
yeah. And I don't have more.
it.
But I've got my own thoughts, just like everybody else does. I'm excited to be a gamer at this time, and it's reaching a whole new generation of kids and young people, and I would have been coming in if TSR had ended at that time, and if it folded and Dungeons and Dragons property went away, I might be one of the youngest gamers out there. But you know
That's
what?
scary. That's scary to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary, but that passion now is being passed to a whole new generation of kids and young adults. And so what started as a novel hobby back when we were younger, back in the 80s and 90s, is now turning into a multi generational. It's starting to gain a life of its own and enter other forms of media that
Well,
people like.
you speaking of multi generational, you do GM for charity,
I
correct?
do.
You do. Would you like to share the information with people with that, where they could contact you if they would like you to run a game and you donate the proceeds to charity?
Absolutely. So, the with some friends, we started D8 Summit Charities. It's a 501c3 charity. It's a tax-free charitable organization. We help conventions and other events add charity components to their games and help them identify quality local charities in their area to support. We also run gaming events ourselves, and run one or two of those a year. The biggest of which is the D8 Summit in Utica, Illinois, a very beautiful part of the state.
Oh yeah,
But we haven't been
national
able.
park.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They got that. You got Starved Rocks Park right there, which is nice, and the resort that we have in is really great. And I highly recommend people come. The problem is because of COVID, we're not able to run an event that draws several hundred people to play.
Exactly.
So what we've been trying to find new ways to help because as a charity, we the local charities that we often support. One of them is Illinois Valley Pads. It's a homeless shelter network, and they do great work, not only helping people, giving them a hand up when people find themselves in a difficult situation. Um, helping folks acquire job skills, helping them find new housing, and get themselves reconnected. But they also take in families, which is I think our soft spot. Like if a family is homeless, what a lot of people don't realize is that homeless families often choose not to go to shelters because when you go to a homeless shelter, many times the homeless shelter will break the family apart. They'll
Wow.
say they'll say that, well, the men have to sleep over here and the women and children have to sleep over here, or we only take women and children. You're going, so the mother and the child can stay here, but the dad, you're gonna have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which honestly, when you're dealing with a situation that's stressful and traumatic as homelessness, that's actually a powerful disincentive to seek help. That's badly needed. And so oftentimes families will choose to live out of their cars or live on the streets than go to a homeless shelter. The folks at Illinois Valley Pads, they realize that and they've built a number of family rooms where the family can stay together while they're getting back on their feet. They've noticed that kids do better in school when this happens. People actually turn around quicker and get back on their feet quicker when you allow the family to stay intact. They're getting some longitudinal data for how the families that stay intact fare compared to others that don't have that support network. But
So
it's looking,
hopefully to see something more of these kind of places come about.
yeah, and you're seeing more of it, but we need to see a lot more of it because homelessness doesn't just affect individuals. Certainly it does, but it affects individuals, but it often affects families. And it's getting more and more prevalent now that so many of us are living from paycheck to paycheck. And we're really only one disaster. Many of us are really only one disaster away from homelessness ourselves.
Yeah. Well, COVID right now helps prove that.
Absolutely.
A lot of people struggling.
Absolutely.
Um,
So we run online fundraisers now. I do professional DMing where I donate the proceeds from the games to charity. So if you are interested in professional in sitting down with somebody online for a game, you can always hit me up on the website. It's startplaying.games. Startplaying.games. There's a number of dungeon masters there. They're all great. If you do select me, I'm going to work my butt off to make sure it's the best that I can
well,
give you. But
I'll
at the
see
same
what
time, money goes to charity.
I can do about getting a link in the description below. When
That
we
would be
get
that
this
would be
up.
delightful.
Yeah.
I can have that.
All right. So that way, all they got to do is click a link, pick Johnathan Connor Self. I can vouch for him. I am going to leave him a review on there,
Oh,
and
thank
I
you.
am excited myself to actually pay to play in one of your games. I
Yeah,
used to get to play in your games for free, but
you did.
but you know what? I am willing to pay to play in one of your games.
Well, if it and knowing that it's less paying and more donation, that maybe that changes your mind a little bit about it.
Yeah, I've got a. I'll keep it a secret, but I've got some stuff around here when the D8 Summit opens up again that I'm going to give you to auction off.
Yeah, that would be
That should
great.
bring you in some good money.
That would be great. We,
So,
we run a good auction. But yeah, so that's how you can find me. Even if you just want to talk shop, I'm pretty accessible though. You can ask me questions and I can point you to resources. My Twitter is the Healer DM, the Healer, like my role in the adventuring party, DM, short for Dungeon Master. Hit me up there. I'd love to chat with anybody.
awesome. Awesome. A DM that heals you. Does it work that way?
That's what I try to do. The stories, in all sincerity, though, the stories that I write and I try to tell, I try to make them uplifting stories that make people feel better about themselves when they're done.
That brings me almost to my very next question. Focusing on the last 5 years.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Not immediately, but about 5 years ago,
Mhm.
ish, I would say we first met.
Mhm.
You came in my store. At the time, you were a volunteer for Wizards of the Coast.
I was.
Yes. And you came in and you said,
Hi, would you like to have Dungeons and Dragons run in your store as an event?
exactly. And I'm
That's
like,
pretty much it.
yeah. And I was like, well, we run Dungeons and Dragons in this store. What is this man talking about? Why, why is it important that we work with this Adventurers League? And, you know, and I found out at Adventurers League really early on. Wow, immaculate. Two sales of a store. Um, so you, I would imagine, I know in the case of my store,
Mhm.
sales really made a big difference when you came along. Um, you worked pretty much mostly through Illinois, correct?
Yeah, but a lot of my convention work takes me up into Wisconsin or into Indiana or Michigan. So,
Oh, okay. But I meant like store wise, like 5 years ago
oh,
when you were doing.
store wise, it was only stores in our area.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, that's when I saw the big boom, the larger than life. Oh my goodness, this is bigger than it was when 3.5 came out. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That's why I'm like, this has gone to a whole nother level when there are like 50 people packed in the back of my store playing Dungeons and Dragons, all
Another
because
10 in the front,
another 10 in the front.
and then another 7 in the middle. Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
pretty busy.
yeah. It was kind of crazy. I gotta admit, I didn't think we would see that level of excitement, just pure excitement for the game again. And AL really helped do this. They stood and delivered. I running a store. I did have conversations with people at Wizards of the Coast as well, and they had been talking about AL, and it affected my store at least a lot more than I expected. What was some of your experiences like for? I believe it was about 2 years you worked for them as a coordinator, correct?
Yeah, I did. For about 2 years, up until the dissolution of that part of the program, when they eliminated the local and regional coordinators. I worked in that capacity, and it was actually honestly it was pretty neat. I got to meet a lot of great people, a lot store owners, players, dungeon masters, people who love the hobby. I was able to bring in people who had never tried Dungeons and Dragons before and wanted to give it a go. That was pretty neat too. Onboarding as many people as we were able to and show them the ropes, show them the game. Um, 10 out of 10 stars would recommend uh, teaching new people to play D&D. So go ahead and give it a try. Um, and so it also introduced me to people in the industry, which has helped me in the long run with the sorts of things I'm doing now. So it's pretty great.
Okay, and then that's where that was leading into what I was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Now we find yourself. over 20 publications.
Yeah.
Most of them coming within the last 5 years, I'm assuming.
Right. Yeah. Most of them within the last couple of years. But
The
yeah.
last couple years. I mean,
Mhm.
you fire these things out pretty quick. I mean,
It doesn't feel like it, but you know,
I
I
mean, I,
I wish I could. I've
I
written
mean, you
projects.
keep a high level of quality in your game, and you release them. I've noticed, especially over the last maybe year and a half, much closer together than maybe previously.
Yeah, yeah. I'm well. You know, you practice anything enough, you get good at it. Um, and 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 besides that, I've also had the good fortune of meeting other talented creatives to help shoulder some of the responsibility and some of the labor of love associated with putting out good stuff. Um, and and so I find that now that I'm working with more people, as opposed to just sort of trying to do it myself, I'm not only are my products getting better, uh, they're releasing quicker.
hmm Yeah, yeah. You get to know. All right, I
Mhm.
know this guy. I can trust him. He's going to meet a deadline. I can get this out to him. It'll be
Right.
ready. Kind of
Mhm.
line up all your ducks in a row.
Right. Right.
So any advice for anybody that wants to do that?
Absolutely. Do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Silence any voices in your head that tell you that you can't. Silence any voices in your head that tell you that it's not good enough. And just do it. Um, you know, just by the act of creating, you'll start to become better at it. You'll learn ways to do it better. Um, it always helps. You can, if you would like, you can learn from other people who've done it. RPG Workshop is a great organization. They actually do classes, and you can sit through there and take their classes. And by the end of it, they will help you write your first adventure and release it to the Dungeon Masters Guild for public consumption. They do great work. There are organizations, Deep Summit is one of them, where where we try to help new authors uh, find a spot in the creative community to share their stories. So yeah, so you could partner with the D8 Summit. You could partner with the RPG Writers Workshop. There's so many great organizations that can help you do that. Or you could just do it, but just do it. That's the number one best advice I've got.
I think that's kind of the attitude I've taken with this channel. Just do it.
Mhm.
And it got concepted and then COVID happened. So, you're my first interview.
Well, and here you are, you're doing it. So, you know, the
Yeah,
first time you do it and you learn just by doing. So that's
that's
how
it.
you get better. You're not going to learn by not
Hey,
doing.
when I was going to be an electrician for a living, my professor always told me, we learn by doing. So,
Learn by doing.
we learn by
Mhm.
doing. Um, okay, so I've got to get to what probably most people that are watching this are waiting for me to get to, that are watching it at this moment. About a week ago, your first Epic launched.
Right.
Um, very secretive. Couldn't share with anybody. I didn't even know people. I didn't even know. So
Yeah.
I wanted to do an interview, and he's like, I think you should wait. And I'm like, why? Why am I waiting to do an interview? But I found out why.
Yeah.
You've co-written this epic. Who was your co-writer with you?
So I co-wrote this adventure with the very talented Ginny Loveday,
Okay,
um, who is a little bit of a figure in the D&D, the wider D&D community as well.
okay.
Yep.
So, what kind of challenges does an epic bring to the table that, say, writing a regular adventure for a con doesn't?
Okay. So For those of you who are out there listening who maybe don't know Adventurers League,
Oh yeah, I
Epic,
should have said what an
or
epic was.
or Pathfinder, they call them multi-table events for Pathfinder. What they are is they are adventures that are designed to run with multiple tables playing the exact same adventure at the exact same time, with interactivity between the different tables, so that what happens at one table can affect the experience at another table. Um, so it's already challenging enough to write a story that can be fully experienced in a meaningful way in a 4 hour time slot. Okay,
Yeah,
so you've got that, and that I'll tell you from my experience, that's a challenge. But when you start saying, okay, now it needs to be something that's really big, like big in story, but also big in experience, because you're not worried about just what 3 to 7 people at your table are doing. Now you're worried about what 20 or more tables of 3 to 7 people are doing all at the same time.
all
Uh,
different levels.
all and often, yeah, very different levels, um, and so there's a lot going on there, and making certain that everybody has a good time uh, experiencing that. And so it helps that I've spent a lot of time volunteering at Adventurers League events, because doing that, I sort of knew, you learn by doing. I learned what sorts of experiences people liked. I learned what sorts of experiences people don't. I had a great coworker, and Ginny, who also has done the same thing. We're bouncing ideas off of each other, um, to make a good story, and uh, and so we had to figure out how to do that. That is really hard. That's like creativity. It stretches your creativity in so many wild ways that you would never think about when you're just writing a story for your home game.
I would imagine so. Uh,
Mhm.
you even have your bosses that are traveling from table to table to keep
Yep.
track of. I found it amazing. Uh, never, I don't believe I ever ran in an epic, have I? I might have. I might
And
have. I shouldn't
you
say
might
I
have.
haven't. I may have. But playing in epics, I love playing in epics.
Hmm.
I've ran a lot of cons, but
Yep.
so I'm sure I maybe have ran an epic at some point.
Playing in epics is a great it's a great player experience, because it feels huge. You're surrounded by 20 or 80 or more people, all of you working together toward the same thing. There's energy and excitement. Occasionally there's booming announcements from the event administration, and giving you bonuses, or
And you got
or hurting everybody that's there, or
and you
you
got your
know
runner at the table. If you're a DM, you're like, hey, we're gonna need a runner. You're gonna be the one
Mhm.
that's running up to the top and telling them, hey, you accomplished this, so they can give us credit.
Yeah, it's a great experience as a player. As a DM, it will challenge you in unique and great ways. You learn to DM to the clock. Um,
Oh
you uh,
yes, oh yes.
you learn to roll with changing situations. If you DM an epic, you will become a better DM, hands down. It's a great experience all around, and uh, they use them, both Pathfinder Society and Adventurers League use them to often as a highlight piece for weekend play. Right?
Yeah,
It's like the gem of the weekend is that 7 to 11 p.m. slot where everybody's getting together and enjoy the same story, and then afterwards mass migration to whatever socialization you want after that.
epics are on a whole nother level, in my opinion,
Mhm.
because you can have hundreds of players, and the epic completes, and not everybody disperses right away. It's almost like one giant game table. As you walk over and you're like, oh, you played in tier three in this. I was in tier two. This is what we were doing. And we helped
Yeah.
you get this so this could help you. how did that affect your table and what did you do? And
Hmm.
epics are just massively phenomenal. And
Yeah,
I can't say it enough. I'm very proud that I could say I know somebody that helped write one. Um,
they're they're very protective. The folks at Wizards of the Coast are very protective with their epics, and the reason why it was such a big honor for me, besides knowing I was writing an event that the Adventurers League is really well known for, it was because they're very tight. They don't let people do it, and they asked me. I'm like, me? I mean, what my when I got the offer, everybody was laughing at me because I'm like, imposter syndrome totally kicked in. I'm like, me? Like, why me? So,
so
so
so are you allowed to elaborate on that? How did they contact you and what
it was
what happened? Like how did this happen?
it is public play. It was publicly okay. So it's a public play event. But when they approach you privately.
Okay.
So I didn't bump into somebody and somebody said, "Hey, that would be great. We'll give you a call." Nothing like that. No. Um, I got a message saying, "Hey, give us a call at this phone number." So I did, not knowing what was going on. When I got that call, um, the um, the person said, "We are interested in having you write for Adventures League next season." I'm like, "Wow, that's so awesome! Thank you." Because it's sort of a dream of mine. It was always a dream of mine to write content specifically for Wizards of the Coast. And they're like, I'm like, "What are you thinking?" Thinking they're gonna toss me into just um, a little adventure here or there. And they said, um, "We want you to write the epic." And I
Jaw
and
drops.
yeah, and I went, "What?" We would like you to write the epic. No, seriously? Like I
Do
couldn't
you know who
believe it.
you're talking to?
Right?
Is that
Like
what you said to him?
you might, you know what? Yeah, maybe you think I'm James Introcaso, but I'm not. And James is a great guy, so he wouldn't mind me uh, poking at him there. He he the person on the other side of the phone was just like, no, and we talked at length about it. And um, it was very humbling. It was very um, it was it felt good that they put that kind of trust in me. I have a certain style of writing that uh, isn't your typical fare for Dungeons and Dragons epic. So
Well, on that subject,
mhm.
um, I would have to say, Wizards of the Coast in fifth edition so
Mhm.
far has probably tried to go darker with 10 towns than they had with
Mm,
anything previously except for maybe Ravenloft, Strahd, Strahd.
absolutely.
Um, did that put pressure on you to also bring a bit of a horror kind of feel to your epic?
The tone was going to be incredibly important, and knowing that people are wanting that Icewind Dale experience, um, that gave you a good starting point. But we went outside of horror for our inspiration. Um, the for this adventure. Um, so the basics of the adventure is that defenders at East Haven become aware of an animal army that is marching on the region, and they need as much help as they can. The city of East Haven is located on a very narrow isthmus between two large lakes, and they know that holding East Haven would be key to protecting the towns beyond Goodmead, Dugan's Hole, Caer Dineval, and Caer Koenig.
Mm-hmm.
And so the defenders at East Haven said, we need you to muster as much help from these cities as you can, so that we can all live together. That it's complicated though, because in the 10 towns don't like each other. There are 10 towns.
A lot of
They don't
rivalry.
like each other. They don't trust each other. They're always in competition with each other. And saying, okay, we need you to come and help this town. They're like, yeah, no, they can help themselves. We got stuff we got to do here. And so the theme of the adventure is unity. We chose unity as a theme, trying to unify a people against a common threat, which is the same theme if you had read The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore.
Yes.
Then you understand that in the 10 towns, unifying the 10 towns against a common threat sometimes doesn't happen until it's almost too late.
Unity, in that saga, Ari's writing, unity is always hard to come by, it seems like.
Right, yeah.
From the Dark Elf lifestyle to the Icewind Dales, and even beyond with orcs, dwarves. It's
right.
part of his writing style.
And so when we wrote the story, we wrote the primary antagonist wasn't the animal army that was marching on the towns. It was the fact that the towns weren't willing to work with each other, and that was the number one thing that was going to get people killed. And in that particular epic, that is the number one thing that's likely to get you killed. At any step of the way, if you focus on anything other than unity, the towns won't come to your aid, so you won't get the help you need at defending East Haven. If you're not unified with your party members and working well together, the combat that is in the adventure will do you in.
Yeah, the book's very much that way too.
Right, like so there was that that unity theme, and for inspiration, the number one inspiring thing would be Saved by Private Ryan.
Really?
Yeah, was the number one inspiration for that adventure. With some other nods to real world Native American cultures, and one nod to Star Trek Voyager's Captain Janeway. sorry y'all, I'm a big Trekkie, and I needed to work Janeway in there somehow because she's just that awesome. So
okay, so repeat that so everybody's looking for it. There is a character.
There is a character that is a heavily inspired by Captain Catherine Janeway of USS Voyager, lost in the Delta Quadrant, trying to find her way home. Yeah, it's and I loved it. But the adventure is very much inspired by Saving Private Ryan. Because we had to tell a story of war, and we had to tell it in a believable way, and we needed to tell it in a human and visceral way.
Yeah.
And so if you are looking for a story that glorifies war, this is not the adventure for you. This adventure tells a story of war from the perspective of the talented people who worked on that film, who had consulted with many other people to get a good idea of what war is. And war is hell. It's terrible that it even happens. And there's that, you see death and destruction happening around you, people that you care about being hurt, the constant fear that you could be the next one, and then even worrying about who's going to take care of the other people, because through the course of the adventure you meet personalities that are invented whole cloth by your dungeon master, tailored to your table experience and the things that you like, and those people that are created, you need to defend because of them, because they're the ones who could be next if you don't. So it is it's solid. One of the coolest compliments I ever got was that the epilogue dealt with war in one of the most human ways. It doesn't talk about how great it is that you won. The victory epilogue is not one of celebration.
Ah,
It's still one of mourning.
that is an interesting take. That is a very interesting take that I did not know about this, and I wanted to play it, and I want to play it even more.
And it's the first epic that is easy to experience because we obviously don't have physical events. You can run multi-table events online, but if you want to tell the story more intimately, you have the choice to tell that in your own home with one table because it is one of the first epics that's designed to be ran as a single table experience amongst friends. So I highly recommend that experience too with a DM that you know well. And no matter how many times you play it, it will be different each time you run it.
Oh, very interesting. So, yeah, I have not played an epic because of COVID. I have not played an epic in probably, maybe year and a half. You know what I mean? And um, I have yet to get to play an epic on an online event. I was gonna try to make Game Hole Con. It didn't happen. Great people there. Great
There are.
people.
There are.
Man, there are so many great cons in the Midwest. We are so blessed.
There are. The If you are interested in playing the adventure, I highly recommend you follow me on Twitter. As events are running this story, I ask them to send it to me, and then I retweet it out. So you can find where it's being played and when. Not like where matters when you're doing everything online. They could be playing the event on the other side of the world, and as long as you share a language, you can play it. And I tweet out the website and the days and times and everything that you can experience it to. So feel free to follow me on Twitter if you want to know. The next time I'm aware of, they are running it at an event that's housed in Belgium.
Mm.
Um, and the Do not worry if you don't speak French or German, because many of the events there in Belgium are run in English. And if you speak English, you could find a table and sit with players from around the world that you've never known before. Which is kind of cool.
Sounds fantastic. Sounds
Great.
fantastic. Yeah, it's so. Um, I gotta say, going forward, as you said, even starting my channel during this whole thing, um, obviously interviews have been down, but it really gives you a chance to get your feet wet. Just like you said,
Yeah.
anybody who's really looking at doing anything out there in gaming, now it's a great time to do it.
Yeah, it is.
Because you can really hone things down, have them ready for hopefully when this is calmed down a little bit, hoping
And
maybe next summer.
and the weird thing too, that seems almost counterintuitive. There's more gaming happening now than there was when the events were in person, um,
Yes,
because
yes,
they're more accessible. They're all over the place, and you don't have to leave your house to play them, which not only makes it easier, to get. You don't have to request time off from work or anything like that. It makes it cheaper as well, because you
again,
don't.
not sponsored, but Roll 20, fantastic for it.
Mhm.
D&D Beyond themselves,
Yeah,
fantastic job.
I,
Those to me, those have been probably the two most helpful tools I've ran across, and I
yep.
see people use often.
Fantasy Grounds and Avray are both very
Oh,
popular
Fantasy
too.
Grounds too. Yes.
Foundry, VTT. When I run, I usually just run Zoom and run Theater of the Mind, much like our conversation here. And I let people roll dice on their other side of the table, and you just tell me what you rolled, and I'll trust you, and we go from there. There's so many different ways to experience the game, that you can find one that suits you at a day and time that suits you, and so there's actually more gaming happening now. There's also services out there, such as Start Playing Games, which we mentioned earlier, where
Mm,
if you want to play but you don't have anybody to DM you and you want somebody that's been vetted and knows what they're doing, you can go and hire out a professional DM who will take you through a story, and more often than not will give you a far better experience than you would
yeah.
get at other types of events.
Yeah. And that's not to hurt anybody's feelings. There's just
No.
a matter of, um, even for beginners, I think some people are more born to be DM, and others are more born to be players.
And there's also something to be said for skill and experience, right? Um,
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
and every DM is a little bit different and brings something different to their games. And like
And
a game that's run by me is going to be very different than a game that's run by you. We have different personalities, we have different skill sets, we have different experiences, and so like it's going to be different, and you can shop around to find somebody who's going to deliver the kind of game that you think is going to be the best. Um,
exactly.
I try really hard. I'm a mental health counselor, and so I have a certain skill set, and I try to incorporate the skills that are helpful in my counseling practice to a Dungeons and Dragons table. Communication, listening, description, psychodrama, internal monologues, um, believable motivations,
Hmm.
getting in, get and the power of pulling in as many senses as I can, just like I do in my counseling practice. Um, and so pulling in, I show you things. I play sound effects. I have vivid backgrounds. I talk about scents and tastes. A lot of times I talk about food because it's a good anchor in D&D games that people don't use. Um, and pull in all those different things to create that experience. And it's not the same as somebody who maybe has an acting background.
Like a Matt Mercer or something
Like a Matt
that's
Mercer,
we're
right?
working more vocally.
Who can work very well vocally. Yeah. I mean, we all have different skill sets, and you can find somebody that matches that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, and
Mhm.
then I find that interesting that you do bring up the fact that your actually job skills even play into your DMing ways.
Yeah.
Um, and I think in general, just a lot of experience and being fortunate enough to have my eyes opened. Um, I had a growing area as a player and a DM. I would say between the ages of about 19 and 21, where I had a super great DM who created a game called Tales of Gaia, and I got credited in it, and it just, I was like, I almost felt like I was doing it wrong before. They say you can't do it wrong, but I was like, oh wow, watching him do this now makes me realize, look at all the cool things I can do.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
It's awesome. Yeah. One of the best ways to learn how to DM is to play.
Yeah.
Just play the game with different people running it, and you'll see things that you like and you'll see things you don't like, and you just sort of buffet style it. I'll take a little bit more of that into my game. Oh, you know what, I didn't like that so much, so when I do it, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it less, or not doing it at all if I can.
Well,
you know
it becomes helpful to become multi-skilled in all those, because when
mm-hmm.
you are running a table, or as you do, run for charity, um,
Mm-hmm.
you can react to a certain kind of play style. You can tell if they like combat a little bit more, role playing a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
what things interest the people who are playing. Um, and for scope perspective, even talking about going back to the epic, that
Mm-hmm.
has to be so immensely difficult, knowing that you're not just writing for a kind of group that's just lumped together. You've got groups that are so massive, there's different style of gamers, and
Yeah.
you've got to give a little bit to everybody.
Historically, Dungeons and Dragons epics were very combat focused, and I mean anybody that knows Adventurers League knows that going into it. Combat often is a very central part of those stories, and given the freedom to sculpt that narrative, we intentionally and deliberately kept combat in there. We made it as intense and challenging as possible, but we made certain to to turn up the other elements, to increase the other two tiers of play. In Dungeons and Dragons, they discussed the three tiers of play being combat, role play, and exploration. And we said, yeah, we like combat, but we're going to turn these other two up more and give them a little bit more of a focus in this
Mhm.
adventure. And so it's the first epic that is so heavily turned into role playing and what you can do outside of combat in preparation for the combat that you know is coming. And so there's a lot of role play and a lot of exploration. It's about 60% or 70% of the epic is
So,
role playing exploration.
so a question for you on top of that.
Mhm.
Um, I was there for the very first D8 summit. I'm proud to say I've been there for every one except for one, which unfortunately I missed. Um, uh, I uh, we really it's funny because it almost felt like it was the people from our store opened it, and then you guys like just ran with the ball, and you took it to this new level, and there's charity involved, and there's auctions involved, and there's epics involved, and you're in a very classy, beautiful venue. Um,
And your store was the pot that allowed that seed to grow. Yeah.
it is, but you guys deserve the credit, you and your team, for really bringing that to a new level. Now, for people that want to have conventions, one, it's safe again in their
Mhm.
areas. Um, what would you suggest? Like, say they want to put a convention together, and they're like, this is our first one. Is there any chance we can get an epic? What types of things should they be doing to try to be successful as a convention?
Excellent. So my first bit of advice is do it. Just do it. It's the same advice I would give for the writing too. But you have to get over your initial reservations of, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be able to is it going to be able to draw people? Am I just going to mess it up? It helps to do it, and I recommend finding other people who are willing to go on that journey with you, people that you trust, that are able to meet commitments, have a history of being reliable. Um, I would look at finding people who have experience and skill sets, who've done this before, see if they'd be willing to help you out,
I,
and help you get that under you. I highly recommend for most events looking at the charity side of it. Um, reason being that conventions, unless you're running one of the really big ones, it's not a moneymaker. It's everything you can do a lot of times just to break even.
it's for the
Um,
love of the game.
yeah, a lot of it you'd be doing for the love of the game. But if you incorporate charity elements into your game, into your event, they often have a better draw for people willing to come out, because if people are more likely to come out and experience your event if they know that the money's going to a good cause instead of the money going in some guy we don't know's pocket.
Yeah.
So if like I said, if you're wanting to do that, um, D8 Summit's a great charity partner because any donations that go to it are tax free, and 501c3, they're fully deductible. So you don't even have to go through the step of going to all of that. Ultimately, you may decide you want to, but you might decide, you know, we're going to run it through this umbrella, and then the people who come in and buy things, they can deduct on their taxes the purchases that year.
What about DMs? I remember there was a point where we had our store going,
Mhm,
and we had weekly game. Well,
mhm.
we had multiple weekly games,
Right.
but we had the big game that would go on. I believe it was Friday, Saturday nights. It
Mhm.
altered over the years, um, and that's when we would have, as we were talking earlier, obscene amounts of people in the store.
Right, right.
Um, Now we basically had a system by you couldn't DM 2 weeks back to back.
Correct.
Um, as you grew in DM experience and points when you were running and saying, "Yeah, I'll run," it helped earn your way into kind of getting into groups where we would go to conventions and run, and they would
Hmm.
cover our cost in and stuff. If someone were to run a convention, how would they go about trying to find a group like we were? Because to be completely honest, when you had approached me about it, I was super excited. I didn't realize that was something we were doing or that the group was doing.
Hmm.
Um, are there other groups like us out there that kind of do that stuff? I mean, where would people find them?
So if you're looking for DMs, right now the best way to advertise for it is to go into popular social media platforms and simply recruit. You could also turn to people that you know and trust and ask them if there are people that they know and trust, and build your wheelhouse of talented people that way. Um, the so there are great people out in the community who know people and are willing to help. You just have to reach out and ask for it.
All right, all right, fair enough, fair enough. Um, so I got to ask you about something that's coming out.
Oh, okay.
Um, you have an Obold adventure coming out.
I
This
do.
intrigues me. I love Obold.
Okay. So dial it back to when I was approached to write the epic.
Okay.
Um, and I that was early summer. That The offer I think I got in the spring. I began writing in the early summer, um, and I had to learn an awful lot about Icewind Dale. And I had, up until that time, not read any Forgotten Realms novels. I was very familiar with the setting, right?
Mhm.
But I hadn't read any of the novels, and I really wanted to understand the type of story that you would tell there. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I went on to Humble Bundle, bought the entire Drist saga, all of them,
Starting off with the man.
uh, uh, because that is the definitive stories on Icewind Dale.
Yeah,
So so
exactly.
I did not start with the prequel. I started right where R.A. Salvatore initially wrote. So I started with the Crystal Shard. It does like a Star Wars thing where it starts with the middle episode, then goes back to the beginning episodes, then goes to after. Yeah,
well,
that's
that
exactly how Drist works. So I
well,
started with the fourth book in the
yeah,
saga, which was the first book that was written, called the Crystal Shard.
yes.
Um, and started reading this. And I read that book. It inspired a lot of what I wrote in the epic, um, and inspired a lot of the play that we have in our stream, because I got a good feel for the place. Then including why my character hates speakers so much. That all comes from the Crystal Shard. But the
Come
but when
on now, Regis was a speaker. Everybody loves Regis.
Regis was a speaker who did it because it allowed him not to work for a living.
He had a nice little dangly thing that could get people to see his way of things. So
Right. And people paid for him because he was doing the work of the
yeah,
city. And he mostly just laid around and fished. And that was his life.
yes,
He liked it.
yes, yes.
Um,
Scrimshaw.
it's not the heroic life though. I pulled from those books into it. And as I'm reading these books, I'm like, wait a second, this Obold character, who is he and what's going on? And so I did a lot of research on King Obold.
Very
Who
different for an orc. He's a very different kind of orc.
He's a very different kind of orc, and at least as orcs were often traditionally told, the story of orcs. Um, to be 100% honest, the idea of orcs, the foundation, the core root of it, is in a mythos, in a mythos that was built into a lot of the racist narratives of the time that these stories were written, and long before. And the it's true, even if you don't know it in your heart, if you have not experienced that because you didn't live back then. Many of the stories that we tell are their foundation is on a racist narrative. And notice how all of the evil people have black skin. Notice how they are all primitive, follow primitive gods. They're warlike and barbaric. They're focused only on mating
Yeah.
and conquering. And
Roomsh himself, the god, the way he's styled out and the way you are to worship him, really is violent. Reproduce, keep going, plow through anything in your way.
right,
War, war, war.
and that gets again it gets at racist tropes, and people need to understand that. Like I said, you do not need to be a racist to tell a racist story. You need it just pays to understand the story that you're telling. And so what we did with that story, I'm like, this guy, this King Obould guy, united his people, built a nation, set up peace with his neighbors, including the humans in Icewind Dale to the north, the dwarves of Mithril Hall to the south,
Which is insane.
right?
Dwarves and orcs.
Yeah, they're at peace with each other. They have culture and art and trade and craftsmanship, and so it's they've created this little this island in Forgotten Realms where you see exactly as orcs can and should be.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, this is pretty cool. Now that I know about this guy from writing this Icewind Dale epic, and see, this is maybe to me the most compelling character in it. Let's go and tell his story a little bit more, and let people interact with them. So we created a story where you can interact with King Obould Many Arrows.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are we talking Obold the Third, more modern times? First.
the first the first King Obould Many Arrows, the one that fought Drist to a standstill,
In an epic battle in the
and
books.
Drist only won because his goddess stepped in.
Yes.
Divine intervention.
Divine
for him,
intervention.
otherwise he was going to lose.
Yes.
This is an orc that's known not only for his size and raw power, but also for a keen mind.
And by the way, on the side note, talking about his god stepping in, Obold's not necessarily totally favored by the shaman's god they worship. So he
Right.
has to deal with trying to keep them happy too.
Yeah, and again, that changed as the story went along. And Obould's favor, after Obould died, he was elevated to an
Yes.
exarch. Right?
Exactly.
He became a divine servant of the gods. And so in this story, we allow heroes to go to the orcish afterlife, where all the followers of the orcish gods, many of them orc, but not all followers of any pantheon are all of one type.
Exactly.
And so many of them are orcish, but there's also humans and others that revere those gods, and the afterlife that they go to, and explains it explains why orcs have developed a reputation in Forgotten Realms for war and conflict, and highlights the very real struggle that orcs experience in the afterlife. And if I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, if you want to know about why orcs are depicted the way that they do, the way that they are in Forgotten Realms in a sensitive way, then I highly encourage you to take a look at this adventure, because you'll learn more about the orcish motivation than anything, and why orcs are actually in a place where they they keep the material plane going.
And the name of the adventure is?
It is called King Obould's Fist. The reference being that you are acting as the directly as the hand of King Obould himself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So you absolutely get to meet orcs the way that that everybody should experience orcs.
Would be
And
an interesting game to actually play as an orc in.
it is. It's more challenging if you play as an orc, but it absolutely can be done. I've run it a few times. Had some orc players. It is harder for them. The but it's enlightening for everybody because when you leave the table, obviously you have the characters, but the experience in a way that's not preachy or anything like that gets you to understand that when you look at any group of people in real life from the outside and say they're this way, that way, and the other way,
Stereotypes.
when you build stereotypes, you limit your ability to understand.
Mm.
And so hopefully you walk away from it saying, you know what, maybe I should take some time talking to people and understanding why they do the things that they do, rather than just saying, oh, they're all like this.
In my gaming life, like I said, I think I turned a corner in my early 20s.
Mhm.
You know, I had at least been credited for working on some books and things of
Mhm.
that nature. Um, when I did run my game,
Right.
uh, I am a big fan of making players make hard decisions when it comes to quote unquote evil
Mhm.
characters, giving them a sympathetic side, or like, hey, this is a real person kind of side to them.
Right.
And I've come to find, at least with people I've played with, more times than not, they will take them in and work with them and even become close to them, buy them armor so they don't get hurt in case they get in a battle, um, rather than slaughter them. You know, they'd much rather help them.
It,
And
it
I,
mirrors the same thing you see in real life, Beans. The number one enemy of any sort of racism or sexism or homophobia is um, or transphobia. It's when you actually take the time to meet and get to know people that you might have otherwise disliked or hated, and realize, okay, on a personal level, I can connect with this person. I understand this person. We're the same. Even though we're different, we're the same. Um, and
exactly.
uh, and so you're absolutely right when you're talking about meeting a member from one of these evil races, and you realize they're actually a lot more like me than I thought.
Well, see, and really, if you think about it, dark elves were kind of that thing too,
Mhm.
until R.A. Salvatore came along, kind of opened the door. So we do have him to thank a little bit on the perspective that people are more open minded when it comes to some of the more uncivilized races, as people
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's good to hear that you carry that on. I was not aware that that was in the epic, and it's really kind of cool because it is like fans of RA's writing, and are very into Ten Talents, and
Mhm.
experiencing this epic is going to give that similar feeling, like a dark elf that just didn't belong comes somewhere. You know what I mean? And now with your Obold coming out too, so it's like you got a bit of a story of, well, hey, these orcs, you know,
Mhm.
really, you really learn about them. So I think there's a nice little crossover there. I don't know how else to say it. That it happened to be that you have written the epic and this adventure for Icewind Dale, because that was groundbreaking in a sense on its own right when it comes to Drow Elves.
Yeah, and and begins to break down those walls that we built up, and as far as the even just the concept of the evil races, because the more we break down that concept, and destroy those walls that we built up, you're going to see that more and more people are going to begin playing D&D. People that maybe from our position of privilege didn't realize that they always felt like they didn't belong in D&D because look how they tell stories about Black people.
Yeah.
Right. And or look how they depict women.
And come to think of it, starting to go into cons from a fairly young age, I would say late junior high, early high school was probably my first gaming conventions.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of Benito Gonzalez Juniors at these kind of conventions, or other ethnicities, or even for that fact, if we want to talk about women, not a lot of female gamers.
Right.
Totally changed.
It's changing. It's changing.
Totally
It's not changing
changed.
as quick as I'd like. I won't be. I'm very open. I won't be 100% happy until I can look at the people at a convention and see a group of people that look like America.
There you go.
But we're getting there. It's changing, and it's going to change the more and more people like us create welcoming spaces. We can't just say, "Look, we have a welcoming space. Trust us and come here." We actually have to do the extra legwork of creating and inviting people to come and experience it, and then actually making it happen when they show up. Right?
Yeah, and be responsible. Be mindful of others' feelings. I think is something that's often not taken into. Especially when I was a younger gamer, of course, we're always more curse words at the table, and
Yeah.
you kind of, and I mean, there is a time and a place, for
Oh yeah.
maybe a sexual reference or a curse or whatever
Absolutely, and
in the
that's
game.
amongst friends that are going to receive that well, right? Absolutely.
Exactly. You don't go into a con doing that. No.
No, some
No.
people
No.
try, but no, you really shouldn't because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't know. Just like in regular life, you don't know what other people's living experiences are like, and so you just have to go in sensitively.
I know. I personally, if I was running a con and I was approached by people and I was told that a specific DM was being vulgar and there were younger kids at the table or anything, that DM wouldn't be brought back to DM again at that con. Yeah,
Right.
you know what I mean. So I think there's a time and place for it, but of course, in private gaming, you know what I mean. You have a better feel for each other, like you
Yeah.
said.
Know your audience.
Know your
Know your
audience.
audience. So no, it's a good thing. So, but yeah, so you'll hear me talk a lot about that, about inclusivity and sensitivity, because one of the things I'd like to see in the years that I've been given, the ones I've got left, is I want to see this hobby open up to people that look like the society that I live in. That's my personal goal. I don't want to run anybody that's in the hobby right now out. I just want to grow it so it looks like everybody.
Yeah, there you go. And we're seeing that even on streams. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it on streams even. So I got one last question for you.
One, okay.
One last one coming at you. Okay, we know Obould's Fist is coming out. Do you have
Mhm.
anything exciting you can tell us about that will be coming out after Obould's Fist?
Okay. So I do have a couple neat projects that I'm working on that are in various stages of production. Um, so I am working with a talented team to reimagine some classic fairy tales and princess stories.
Oh,
Um, and I wrote a portion for that upcoming anthology of adventures that's very it's modeled over my favorite fairy tale, and which for anybody that knows me knows that automatically that it is the darkest of all fairy tales, Hansel and Gretel. Um, so
I was going to run a Hansel and Gretel game on one of those weeks that I contacted the group.
yeah. So I have an adventure themed on that story that adventurers can experience. I have another adventure coming in a anthology of tarot card themed stories.
Mm,
I wrote the story for Temperance, and it is a terrible and horrific story that I think people will like. Um, the,
You're talking about peace earlier. Like it's terrible and horrible. People are going to love this.
I love horror movies, Beans. What can I say? And and so there's a story like that, and I have another work that we're beginning. It should be kickstarted sometime soon. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll learn more about it. It will be awesome. When we're talking about opening up the experience with gaming to people that may not be like us, it's going to be a resource that any DM that cares about their players would want to have. So,
Okay. Wow.
and I
You're
mean,
just
like,
kind of leaving
cares.
a little trail there that we're going to have to follow.
Yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to say yet. So again, I mean, NDAs, man, everybody makes you sign one, and you can't say anything.
Oh yeah, you're on the internet. You're probably being recorded. You got to be careful.
I know, right?
Shh.
Right? Shh, don't do it. Don't tell.
Don't trust that Benito guy. You don't know.
Whatever. We go way back. I just happy I got a chance to come in and talk to you a little bit about some of these different things and share this time.
It was fantastic having you here. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to talk to some other people that are going to be running cons in the future. Do you yourself for the D8 Summit have any plans for next year? Is it still up in the air?
We our event is traditionally held in mid to late April, and we know that things are not going to be okay enough to
Okay.
host the D8 Summit next year. However, uh, things are okay enough to host another online event. And rather than leave our charity partners in a lurch because they need the money now more than ever, more people are homeless now than ever. We want to we saw and raise money for them. So we're running an event called Mayday's 10 Day. It is a 10-day long online convention. There are games happening all over the place whenever people are able to run. It is a Slackticon. You play as much or as little as you want. People are pretty laid back with everything. Events are run all over the world and in a variety of languages and time zones, so you can find something that works for you. It is set to go, and I just want to make sure I got the dates pristine and perfect. The first day is April 23rd through May the 3rd. So it runs over actual May Day, which is why it's called May Day's 10 Day.
Okay.
It runs over actual May Day. It goes 10 days because, the reference to Forgotten Realms with 10 days in a week. They don't have weeks, they have 10 days.
They have 10-day. I'll be there in a 10-day.
So it runs over 10 days. If you look at the calendar, it counts 11 days, but time zones and all sorts of weirdness. And it will be a great time. Last year we had hundreds of people show up, and we were able to donate about $10,000 to charity.
Phenomenal.
This year we're hoping to do even better. So
Great. Well, this year I'll definitely be participating in it.
that would be awesome, Beans. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Maybe maybe get a little behind the scenes on the channel on Mind Games.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, it has been an honor to have you as my first official interview guest on Mind_Games. And Connor, you are a fantastic friend. Knowing you over the last 5 years has been a delight, and I'm glad that you're not just staying stagnant in the game. You're moving up within the WotC world. They're contacting you.
Surprisingly enough, yes. I don't
and
know why. I still don't know why.
and you're trying to use gaming to a very positive in a
Mhm.
very positive way. So um, you're just class act, my friend. You're a class act.
As are you, Beans. And I encourage you again, if you're interested in finding more about the sorts of things that I'm involved in, if you want to talk more about using gaming to help people and to heal people, then I encourage you to follow me on Twitter at the Healer DM. And I'd love to meet you. I tend to mutual people. That's
All
what I do.
right. We're going to fit this into the description down below when this gets put up. Uh, Thank you very much, Counter. It's been an
Thank
honor
you.
talking to you. You
Don't be afraid to reach out if you need help, and take care.
take care.
All right. Bye.